even before the Smart and Williams extensions, but directly related to those was, okay, if Brad Stevens elects to hand out those extensions this year to those two guys, so many people, this is what kind of pisses me off, to be honest with you, Chris, about social media or the, supposed cap experts. And when I say that, I don't mean like the Keith Smiths. I mean like, internet cap experts who don't, who I'm talking about. I mean, there are a bunch of these people out there that it's like, you make a claim, you tweet something, you say something about, any potential flexibility to deal for or sign and trade or outright sign in free agency, a Bradley Beal type, or just a max veteran, a year from now, next summer. And they will quickly break down for you all the different ways that is not possible. And it's like, well, you're renouncing this guy. You can't re-sign this guy. You're gutting, these. And I always respond by saying, well, sure, if we're operating based on what the roster is right this very second, you're going to tell me Brad Stevens is going to make any changes in the next year that impacts what you're outlining for me? Well, you can't do that because it's still the same money. And these guys eat up, this salary and this percentage of cap. And it's like, to some degree, that's correct. But a lot of this stuff can be manipulated, not like the NFL salary cap, but you can still manipulate certain things. And certainly I trust a guy like Mike Zarin when it comes to, going down to the nickel about all this different stuff. And, that's why I enjoyed so much when you wrote the article about, if they extend Smart and they extend Williams, guess what? There's still a path. The Celtics get, because it's what I was screaming without the article to back it up. And then you wrote it and I could just send it to people. No, this is what I was talking about. So break it down for anyone out there that's a naysayer, a non-believer, as to why just because you have, a different kind of flexibility situation right now, that the dream to add another superstar isn't dead.
Yeah. And now, first off, because I understand we spent the first month of the off season saying flexibility. And, if you're not a nerd like me and studying the numbers, like, then they go sign these extensions, you're thinking, wait, doesn't this run counter? And that's understandable. But just because of the way everything is set up, like Rob Williams, if he hadn't signed an extension, would go into next season, would have had an $11 million cap hold. In order for the Celtics to have re-signed him, they would have had to have kept $11 million essentially on their books, which would have prevented any path to cap space until they renounced their rights to him. And that's not something you wanted to do. So in the Celtics thinking, even if you extend him at anywhere near that cap hold number, you're not messing with any of your flexibility, and you're potentially locking him up at a price that could skyrocket if he had a great season. So I thought the Rob thing was legitimately like a slam dunk. And it was funny when people were like, no way, they're not going to do that. Because I deleted Twitter on vacation, I didn't go take a victory lap every time Marcus and Rob Williams. And then in Marcus's case, like, I know 17 million sounds like a lot for a starting salary, 77 million over 4 years, but we're going to look up in 2 or 3 years and we're going to be like, oh my God, he's making slightly more than mid-level money for a potential starting point guard who potentially makes your core better. And so the big thing here is that they have flexibility. I don't know if these guys are long-term fixtures, pillars, as Ime said, with Jason and Jalen, but they have a chance to be, and they could be low budget pillars for this team. And so if you do carry that through, if you have that quad of Marcus, Jalen, Jason, and Rob, there's still a path, if you get off Al Horford's money, to about $20 million in cap space as early as next offseason. Okay, you're probably not going and getting a Bradley Beal, but you can get someone, enticing. That's sort of throwing yourself in the mix for a Lonzo Ball type this past offseason at that money. It's adding a Marcus Smart type player. So they can still sort of get that another star that route. It's not the elite top of the line, but it's there. Now, if Bradley Beal's out there and that is something you want to do, but you don't want to break up Jalen and Jason, you got to get off Al's money, but you could move Marcus Smart, and then you're right back in the game for max room of adding someone like not Bradley Beal's full max because he'll be 10 years in, but you'll be in the neighborhood. And if he really wants to play with Jason Tatum that bad, he'll come for that amount of money. So the more likely scenario is a sign and trade where, you're still trading some combination of contracts here, whether that's Al or Rob or
Richardson now too.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's part of the reason when I sit there and say, man, I don't quite get this Richardson contract. Well, if he has a bounce back year and he's an attractive option, he's someone that might be wanted to throw into a deal. And it might not be for Bradley Beal, but it might be someone else out there. So yeah, they still have multiple paths here. I just don't think they encumbered flexibility by making these moves. In fact, I think they've guaranteed return on those assets.